This time, they tacitly agreed not to mention the past. They decided to embark on a completely different life from their previous one. The man chose to study abroad with his first love, whom he couldn't forget in his previous life. 7 years later, the man used his past life's memories to become a top global trader. He attended a class reunion with his first love. Unexpectedly, he ran into his ex-wife, who had been missing for 7 years. Seeing the woman dressed in sportswear, he inwardly sneered, thinking that she had indeed lived a worse life without him. At that moment, the woman ignored the strange looks from others, and casually picked up a cake from the table, eating it in big bites. The man squeezed next to her and mocked. She was already an ugly woman in the past life. In this life, she still doesn't know how to dress up. No wonder no one has wanted to marry her even after 7 years. Looking at the ex-husband she had once deeply loved, the woman's heart was filled with sorrow. In her past life, she had given up the opportunity to further her medical studies, stayed by his side, and supported his business endeavors. To help him gather startup funds, she worked 3 jobs a day, even delivering food to earn extra money. Yet, her unconditional care only made him more and more insatiable. Not only did he start to despise her for aging and looking unattractive, but he also constantly argued with her and even resorted to physical violence, because, in his heart, he had always loved his first love the most. He often lamented that if he could relive his life, he would surely marry his first love. On the night of their divorce, they were in a car accident. Both of them were then reborn, returning to 7 years ago. This time, the woman pursued her dream of studying medicine. Now, she had become a world-renowned doctor. Moreover, she had a happy and fulfilling family. Her husband was a billionaire CEO whom everyone vied to befriend. Because she had just finished a long surgery and hadn't had time to change, she attended the reunion in simple attire, which led the snobbish classmates to mock her as poor. To humiliate her further, the man handed her a check for $100,000, advising her to dress better instead of looking sloppy all the time. The woman calmly stated that she didn't need the money at all. She also reminded him that today was their death anniversary. From now on, he could no longer use his past life's memories to predict the future and make money. The man, filled with anger, when he suddenly received a phone call, informing him that the CEO was at the top floor of the hotel. Eager to seize the opportunity to climb the social ladder, he hurried off to try his luck. Seeing this, the classmates quickly flocked to the first love, whispering that the woman had deliberately approached the man earlier. Worried that the woman might take her husband away, the first love handed the woman $20,000, demanding that she never appear again. Unexpectedly, the woman publicly humiliated the man, declaring that even looking at him disgusted her. Furthermore, she was already married with children, and her husband was far superior to that man. When the crowd heard that her husband was the CEO, they burst into mocking laughter, ridiculing her for pretending to be the CEO's wife, believing that no real CEO's wife would dress so plainly. However, in the next moment, a waiter delivered a cake ordered by the CEO to the woman. Everyone immediately speculated that the woman might truly be the CEO's wife. Just as the woman was about to sign for the cake, the first love suddenly snatched the receipt. She questioned whether the CEO had really sent the cake to the woman. The classmates guessing that the man must have already met the CEO, and the cake was actually for the first love. The first love gleefully prepared to sign for it, but the woman forcefully stopped her. She warned that if the CEO discovered that someone else had signed instead of his wife, he would be furious. But the first love paid no heed, immediately signing her own name. She even deliberately humiliated the woman, mocking her for never having tasted black truffle cake before, then pretended to trip and smashed the cake onto the woman's face. Furious, the woman raised her hand and slapped the first love. This scene was witnessed by the man, who had just returned. He demanded that the woman apologize to the first love. The woman refused to back down. When the classmates murmured that the woman had publicly humiliated the man earlier, the enraged man slapped the woman, and ordered the classmates to beat her together. Suddenly, the CEO's son rushed onto the scene, until they heard the CEO's son call the woman mom. Everyone then realized that she might truly be the CEO's wife. However, her ex-husband still did not believe any of this. He believed that the little boy and the bodyguards were all actors hired by the woman. She purpose was to impersonate the CEO's wife at the class reunion. The man thought this because, in their previous life when they were married, the woman had promised to love only him and bear children only for him. Therefore, he absolutely could not believe that the woman would marry another man. When the classmates saw that the woman was dressed plainly, they mocked, saying that a billionaire CEO could never marry her, no matter how the woman explained. No one at the scene believed that she could be the real CEO's wife. The woman saw through these people's snobbishness and their love for wealth, and she decided not to argue with them any further. Just as she was about to leave with her son, the man stopped her and forced her to reveal the truth. Even though they had been separated for 7 years, the man still believed that the woman loved him, and that she could not possibly have a 5-year-old son. He believed that the woman was deliberately acting to punish him for his betrayal in their previous life. The woman found his remarks utterly laughable. In fact, she had long ceased to love him, and she even regarded him as mere roadside trash. After all, her current husband was the world's richest man, with a net worth of $100 billion. Seeing that the woman was unwilling to admit that she was acting, the man had the other classmate lock the little boy in a room. Little did he know that this action would immediately come back to haunt him, because the CEO was ruthless. Anyone who dared to harm his wife or son would vanish from the face of the earth. At that moment, the CEO had already noticed that the name on the cake delivery receipt was not his wife's. Realizing that his wife might be in trouble, he immediately rushed, accompanied by his bodyguard, bodyguards to the class reunion his wife was attending. After the little boy was locked in the room, he shouted that he wanted to find his mom, and in his excitement, his asthma was triggered, and he collapsed to the ground. When the woman heard that her son had collapsed, she was extremely anxious, and she wanted to go check on him, but the man pulled her back. At that moment, the man was still questioning whether the woman was acting. No matter how worried the woman appeared, the man still refused to believe that she could have a child. After all, in their previous life, the woman had loved him so much, even to the extent of giving up her medical research to marry him, and even delivering takeout to support his entrepreneurial ventures. No matter what, the man could not believe that the woman had already had a child. Seeing the woman desperately struggling and pleading, the man demanded that she kneel before he would allow her to leave. Upon seeing that the woman was willing to kneel for the sake of the little boy, the man believed that the woman had indeed remarried. Otherwise, someone as proud as her would never do that for a stranger. The man allowed her to leave, but the man's first love, out of jealousy, tripped the woman with her foot to stop her from leaving, and questioned the man about why he kept talking about matters from their previous life. The first love suspected that the man had been in love with the woman all these 7 years, and even suspected that they had been in contact all along. At this thought, the first love accused the woman of seducing the man. The woman explained that she already had a husband and a child. Upon hearing this, the man asked for her husband's name. When the woman loudly declared that her husband was the CEO, the man's phone also received a photo sent by his assistant. Seeing the photo, the man was instantly terrified. At that moment, the first love was still unaware, and she immediately picked up the phone from the ground to check. It wasn't until she saw that the CEO's wife in the photo was the woman that the first love exclaimed, "No way." The other classmates were also shocked. They were worried that, because they had just bullied the woman, they might be punished by the CEO. In the next second, the CEO arrived with 100 bodyguards to protect his wife. It wasn't until they saw a photo of the CEO's wife on the phone. Only then did everyone realize that the woman they had just bullied was the CEO's wife. Rumor has it that the CEO dotes on his wife and son. Just as they were worried about facing retaliation, the CEO had already arrived with 100 bodyguards. He did not rush to reprimand these snobbish classmates. Instead, he had the bodyguards keep watch, ensuring that no one left. Then he carried his wife to the hospital for treatment. Fortunately, both his wife and son were unharmed. To take revenge on those people from the classmates' gathering, the CEO decided to return to the hotel with his wife. Meanwhile, the classmates were blaming the man and his first love for their misfortune. The man was so frightened that he was completely distraught. He couldn't understand that in their previous life, the woman had loved him so much. She had even promised to bear a child only for him. But in this life, the woman had abandoned him and married the CEO. Suddenly, the woman walked over, her arm linked with the CEO's wrist. The classmates, upon seeing this, immediately knelt down, pleading with them to let them go. They claimed that it was the man and his first love who had wronged them. The CEO paid no attention. Instead, he had his wife sit down and then began his reckoning. First, the CEO took out the cake delivery receipt he had given to his wife. He asked whose name was on it. One of the classmates immediately accused the first love, claiming that it was the first love who had signed for the cake on the woman's behalf, and had even smeared the cake on the woman's face. The CEO immediately asked everyone for a favor. Everyone was more than willing, so, following the CEO's orders, they smeared the cake all over the first love's face. In doing so, they avenged his wife. Next, the CEO began to take action against the man. He began by thanking the man for breaking up with the woman 7 years ago. Otherwise, he would not have been able to marry such a wonderful wife. After saying this, he punched the man, sending him crashing to the ground. The man had hoped that the woman would plead on his behalf, but little did he know, the woman had already come to despise him. She picked up a cup of grape juice and poured it over his head. The first love could not bear to see the man humiliated, hoping that the woman would show mercy for the sake of their past as lovers. To his surprise, however, the woman made a demand. She ordered the man and the first love to kowtow and confess their mistakes to her. They had to continue until she was satisfied. After having finished reprimanding the two, the woman then turned her wrath toward the other classmates who had bullied her. She demanded that they vanish from the city within a day. As the woman turned to leave, the man suddenly called her back and asked her when she had stopped loving him. The woman replied that she had stopped loving him the moment they broke up 7 years ago. Moreover, she was very grateful to fate for giving her a second chance at life. It was precisely because she left him that she was able to marry the CEO, a wonderful husband. Thus, she went on to live a happy and fulfilling life. But the first love was not willing to accept this. She claimed that the woman had merely married a rich man. She further asserted that the woman had no real abilities. The woman ignored her and left without a word. At that moment, the first love received a phone call from her mother. She learned that her father was critically ill, hospitalized, and undergoing further surgery. However, this surgery could only be performed by the most renowned female doctor in the country. When they went to the hospital in search of the female doctor, they discovered that the woman was also employed there. The first love mistakenly thought that the woman was a hospital attendant. She looked at her with disdain, believing that the woman lacked genuine qualifications. Thinking that she had become the CEO's wife merely by seducing the man, she deliberately humiliated the woman. The man, not daring to offend the CEO's wife, behaved with utmost deference, until they all got off the elevator together. They saw the woman heading straight to the doctor's office without waiting in line. The first love was still accusing the woman of cutting in line. When she heard from a nurse that the woman was actually employed here, the first love, embarrassed by the ridicule of others, fell silent. She had no choice but to obediently join behind the queue and wait for her number to be called. What she could never have imagined was that the female doctor they were looking for was none other than the woman she so despised.